Hi, my name is Ekbe and I'm here to present multidimensional affect in poetry, dataset acquisition, annotation, and baselines, which is work conducted by myself, Jack Hopkins, and Natisse Kearns while studying at the University of Cambridge. In summary, this work presents a methodology for annotating poems with emotional labels and subsequently produces the dataset POCA of said annotations. Our motivation for this work was twofold. Firstly, within the NLP community, we'd seen deep learning making massive strides in information extraction and opinion mining. However, evaluation of sentiment remained in its infancy, focusing firstly on prosodic data, and second of all, being binary classification, is this positive or negative sentiment? On the other hand, within the affective computing community, we'd seen large discussions also within psychology on the theory of emotions and how best to describe and also annotate these within experiments. This had led the community to create gold standard annotation tools for extracting emotional labels from individuals. We saw a great opportunity to apply some of the great findings within affective computing to help push forward NLP, in particular to annotate poems, which are non-prosodic data, which are a higher form of communication, conveying complex emotions and not just positive and negative sentiment. So how did we do this? Well, we decided to take the Geneva Emotional Wheel, which is an established annotation tool based on the circumplex theory of affect, and use this to annotate a set of poems, an example of which is presented on the poem below. So here we have the poem is Meditation on Statistical Method, and on the right we have the annotations which we get. Immediately you can see that there's 20 labels that are collected per poem, and in particular each label has intensity from 0 to 5, immediately giving you over a potential 100 data points on an individual poem. This is like highly informative and a very rich annotation per poem. So that's the poems that we collected, but where did we collect them? Firstly, we did an in-lab study, which was conducted at the University of Cambridge with 30 participants, before then scaling this up to a larger online study. In the in-lab study, the protocol was that there was 2 minutes of relaxing music presented to each individual before they were then presented with a recital of the poem. This was played to them twice with a 30-second break in between. The reason for using recital was that not only do we want to give them the information, the textual information, but also the phonological information that you can only gain from the utterances of the text themselves. In order to validate that the annotations were going to be useful, we also reported the electrodermal activity of each participant using an active cue sensor. This worked to establish and make correlations between what was being reported and also the EDA involved. Secondly, once this had been established, we then moved on to our second largest study, which was with over 1,500 people using Amazon Mechanical Turk. In each session, participants would listen to a poem as many times as they wanted to within 10 minutes. Average poem length was about 3 minutes, so this was like slightly more than in the in-lab study. In order to filter or try and keep the quality of participants high, we ensured that all of them had an English education or education given to them in the English language, and also had been to further education. In both studies, we asked the question, what emotions did this poem make you feel? And then asked the individuals to annotate the tool as they saw fit. So now we established like what was being annotated and where we annotated. Now I'd like to talk about like the actual data set itself. So POCA consists of over 330 labeled poems with their content, audio recitals, and the emotional labels from the Geneva Emotional Wheel. Each poem was listened to at least by 3 to 5 participants, which means that we can, and means and variances were reported. We also provided an additional 1,200 unlabeled poems for self-supervised learning tasks, which can also be used to extend out POCA at a given time. The inter-annotated agreement for the labeled poems was 0.5, Krippendorf's alpha, and 2.95 Pearson's correlation coefficient. The reason that we can report 2 different forms of inter-annotate agreement is because this data is so rich and varied, there's many ways to evaluate it as a task be it as a continuous data or discrete. So this brings us on to the set of tasks that POCA can allow you to do. With 20 emotional labels, you can effectively have over 40 different tasks immediately, which is simply like presence of the emotion, which is discrete 0, 1, or prediction of the actual intensity of that emotion. For example, on the poster, we've given sadness as an example. Moreover than that, because we provide both mean and variance, you can also ask to predict the label uncertainty. Inherent to poetry, unlike the prosodic work we've done before, there is uncertainty within the poems because interpretations are varied, and this is a large component of like English literature analysis, which is like evaluating the uncertainty of like these statements. We can also do a like first order approximation prediction of this as well, looking at the uncertainty from the labels presented, given that some poems are significantly more ambiguous than others. In order to like demonstrate how difficult POCA was, we then move this on. We move this on to be evaluated against 4 separate models and also compared to 3 existing benchmarks. The benchmark chosen were IMDb, which is film classification, SS2T2, which is analysis of sentiment of tweets, and then finally Emotion Lines, which is the analysis of dialogue within like the sitcom Friends. On all of these tasks, we can see that our current state-of-the-art methods fail miserably on POCA, and we like really attribute this to the fact that, first of all, this is prosodic. This is not prosodic data, which is most of these models are pre-trained on, and second of all, the fact that we're asking a significantly more difficult task, which is like how specific this emotion has been elicited within a reader. So, given POCA and its state currently, where do we see further work? We see 2 main things. First of all, we'd love for POCA to be expanded, to be used by individuals within the NLP community to try and like evaluate their new models, especially as we get larger zero-shot learners. We think that a data set of 330 labeled poems becomes more and more useful for evaluating how these models will work on out-of-distribution tasks. Secondly, we look forward to if anybody would like to help us expand POCA further, as we have a further 1,200 poems that are still not labeled. Thank you for your time.